our founder flames. This right here is an embodied form of the violet ray spectrum.
Tap in and tune in Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern, live on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. Grand Rising with ChristoLight, your sacred space for discovering the Ascended Masters in crystal healing. Ashe.
Addiction. It's a word that carries weight, stigma, and pain. But what if addiction wasn't just a lack of willpower? What if it's deeply rooted in human psychology, trauma, and the need for connection? In today's video, we explore the psychology of an addict through the lenses of two brilliant minds, Carl Jung and Dr. Gabor Mate. Part 1. Understanding Addiction through Carl Jung. Let's begin with Carl Jung, the father of analytical psychology. Jung saw addiction not just as a physical or psychological affliction, but as a spiritual crisis, a search for wholeness and meaning gone astray. He believed addiction arises when a person is disconnected from their true self, what he called the self, and is instead dominated by a shadow, a hidden part of the psyche filled with unmet needs, fears, and desires. Jung famously said, "Every form of addiction is bad, no matter whether the narcotic be alcohol, morphine, or idealism." Addiction, according to Jung, often stems from an unconscious longing for connection with something greater, what he called a connection to the divine. Part 2. Gabor Mate and the role of trauma in addiction. Enter Dr. Gabor Mate, a renowned physician and addiction expert. Mate builds on Jung's ideas and focuses on the root cause of addiction, unresolved trauma. He asserts, the question is not why the addiction, but why the pain. For Mate, addiction is a coping mechanism, a way to soothe the pain caused by childhood neglect, abuse, or feelings of unworthiness. Mate explains that addiction provides a temporary escape, but it also traps individuals in a cycle of dependency and self-destruction. He emphasizes that true healing comes not from blaming or shaming addicts, but by addressing the wounds that led to their pain. Part 3. Connecting Jung and Mate, the spiritual and emotional void. Jung and Mate's perspectives complement each other. Jung focuses on the spiritual void, the lack of meaning and disconnection from the self, while Mate highlights the emotional void, the unhealed wounds of trauma. Together, they paint a holistic picture of addiction as both a psychological and spiritual crisis. Jung's archetype of the wounded healer comes to mind here. It's the idea that our deepest wounds can become our source of strength and transformation if we confront them with honesty and courage. Part 4. The path to healing. So how do we heal? Jung and Mate offer practical insights. Connect with your shadow. Jung encourages us to face our hidden fears and desires. Start by journaling or seeking therapy to uncover what lies beneath your addictive behaviors. Heal your inner child. Mate emphasizes the importance of nurturing the part of yourself that felt unloved or unworthy. Self-compassion is key. 3. Seek meaning. Whether it's through art, spirituality, or community, find a sense of purpose that fills the void addiction once occupied. To build connection, addiction thrives in isolation. Joining support groups, talking to loved ones, or connecting with nature can help restore balance. Part 5. A message of hope. Addiction doesn't define a person. It's a chapter in their story, not the entire book. Both Jung and Mate remind us that transformation is possible. The journey may be difficult, but every step you take toward healing is a step toward rediscovering your authentic self. Part 6. Call to Action. Have you or someone you know struggled with addiction? Share your thoughts or experiences in the comments below. Let's create a space for understanding and support. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content on self-discovery, psychology, and personal growth.
Welcome everyone. Grand day, grand rising, grand night, wherever you are in this time space. And boy, we're going to be talking about what could be a pretty serious topic for some of us in this world. And I'm sure just about all of us have gone through addiction in some type of fashion, whether it's addiction to negative thought forms, addiction to negative outcomes, addiction to food, sugar, cravings, addiction to sex, addiction to being in the same patterns and never growing and learning and elevating. And of course, we can have addiction to drugs and substances as well. So today we're going to be peeling back the layers and uncovering how it is that we become addicted to things in our life and use conscious strategies to bring impact into breaking the chains of addiction, as well as becoming more conscious and more accountable in our everyday life by standing in our stronger auric field and conscious mind when it comes to our impulses, attachments, and things that continue to cause addictive tendencies. This is a great episode to share with anyone that you feel like is struggling, or anyone that's in recovery, or just anybody in life in general that would like to have an understanding of how to avoid addiction, be prepared, and know how to address it if it's taking place within ourselves, but not just in ourselves, but also. So welcome again to this fresh episode of Grand Rising with ChristoLight. I'm Marcus ChristoLight. I am a shamanic holistic practitioner, and I'm also a sacred space holder, and I sit one-on-one with many around the world and help them through things like their addictive tendencies, their unhealthy patterns, and things of that nature. All right, so let's go ahead and read from ascensionglossary.com what they define as addiction through Lisa Renee. So almost all forced ego identities are based in the heavy second chakra or the sacral. Addiction programs lodge in the pain body as the shadow selves and alternative identities are clearly intertwined through an addiction pathway that is easy to energetically control and manipulate human beings. Addiction programming is the primary tool of enforcing mind control by the controllers. The archonic deception behavior and their harmful strategies are set up for humanity for lifelong, serious addiction programming through triggering unhealed emotional trauma generated by soul fragmentation and spiritual disconnection. Wow, there's so much to already touch on there. So let's see. Let's talk about the shadow self. So Carl Jung mentioned the shadow self when he had his talks about psychology. So let's see what the shadow self is about here. When we incarnate into the 3D, we had to accept huge miasmic package that is attached to the collective human mental bodies on this planet. Miasmic is basically saying like dense, dark, energy that we have to alchemize. So when we came into this 3D, we knew that that was part of it, that we had to go through density, and that it's attached to the collective human mental bodies on this planet. These are called universal shadow bodies, the negative form or phantom sun bodies. These phantom bodies are what generate shadow selves, and these shadow bodies are what connect unawakened humans to the 9/11 timeline of the Alpha Omega agenda or the negative alien agenda. The shadow selves form in larger gestalt of dark consciousness bodies, which are shaped into an organized principle, which is based in the total absence of light. And these dark forces have descended even further through the abuse of inorganic technology and AI systems. The extensive and advanced use of AI by these races to gain sophisticated phi-based intelligence and prolonged lifespans has assimilated many of these shadow creatures into fully inorganic AI creatures, which further animates the shadow bodies that it finds into our alien machinery weaponry. The negative form. So the negative form is a form of karma or miasma that is extracted as a splinter from our shadow body that is connected to the simultaneous incarnation where we had a trauma or event that could be used to manipulate the present time. The negative form is a series of artificial dead light codes or dead light bodies that were used in a holographic image to recreate and usurp our genetic material by the controller forces. Some of these distorted bodies are from our fallen history of Terra, and such of the astral body damage that ensued from the 2D, 4D split and wing trauma. The 2D and 4D astral body split. Due to the DNA damage our species suffered after the fall of Terra, the 4D astral body that made up our heart center was fractured, and the lower position of the soul matrix astral layer became inverted upon itself and became lodged in our second dimensional sacral center. Thus, a portion of our original soul matrix fragmented and got stuck in the second dimension on the planetary body and within our individual layers. When incarnating upon the earth plane, this distortion to our soul and heart center becomes a genetic block, which further digressed angelic human DNA. Over time, these became generational distortions, which manifested into the disconnection between the 2D elemental field of the physical body, the 1D unconscious mind, and both the lower and higher part of the astral identity that form into the soul matrix. Essentially, what this means is that when incarnating in a physical body on the earth, it was hard for the conscious mind of the personality to actually feel the experience of the soul while in a body, and this had the tendency to disconnect the functions of the heart center. These schisms of the light body layers also greatly contributed to the production of shadow selves, shadow personality alters, shadow elements, and fragments in the soul matrix, which further proliferated personal miasma and planetary miasma. The origins of the universal shadow body. The origination point of shadow body attachment to our personal angelic human light body was kept in place as a static field in which black hole entities from the WESA system used the universal shadow body to siphon life force energy and feed on humans directly, with cords and implants attached to the chakra system. Thus, the shadow body, which contains subpersonality aspects of the negative ego, shadow selves, the negative forms, ghost imprints, and accumulated traumatic memories, and karmic superimposition, is a part of the human light body. During the Lyran Stargate explosion, the damage created at the 11th dimension was inverted and twisted into phantom areas in order to harvest our collective race consciousness, sending the living light energy collected back to their home, a fallen system in a parallel matrix. And I'll read this part and go back to the beginning. We have shadow clearing. So at the most basic level, we each have a collective shadow body that we have inherited as connected to humanity, as well as an individual shadow body that was formed from accumulating traumatic experiences and emotional conflicts. The negative emotions generate shadow elemental substances and dead energies that build up and become enmeshed with our physical layers, forming into energy blockages. To release these energy blockages, we are required to address the shadow body. So clearing the shadow means to be able to face our emotional wounds. To achieve spiritual integration, we must become conscious of our past emotional trauma and then allow a safe place in which to heal these dark places in order to transmute the shadow body and live in a more conscious, authentic, and loving lifestyle. Beautiful. All right. So then it talks about the addiction pathway. Let's go ahead and see what addiction webbing is. So in the application of a NRG, ooh, throat chakra's opening. Hydration check. So the NRG is the Nephilim reversal grid. So an application of the reversal grid coded implant, its mechanism acts like a ticker leech that burrows itself deeper into the lower areas of the astral body, mostly into the second chakra or sacral, into the instinctual response functions of the central nervous system. From the second level of chakra layer infection, if the addiction becomes severe over time, which is repetitive destructive reactions and spiritually abusive behaviors as the response to external stimulus, it eventually embeds itself deeper into the energy matrix of that light body. A false webwork, like a film or spider web, is an overlay on the nervous system. Sections become infected until the entire system is infected. It winds up the spinal cord and will have a trigger implant placed in the back of the head and neck. Once the implant is fully embedded and operational, severe addiction, mood swings, or possession occur as the target becomes more bipolar and manic. These are signs of mental and emotional instability, which further weaken the person into potential soul fragmentation. The most common area for alien implants or mind control is the atomic doorway, the 9th chakra, where the inner spirit light reflects out of the eyes. The inner light will die and become dead in the eyes after this implant takes over the body. The implant is a negative agenda reptilian NRG brain implant that is placed in the structure of the brainstem via the medulla oblongata. The atomic doorway, or the 9th chakra. So let's see what that is. The 9th chakra, if I believe correctly, is the, so it's the chakra called the mouth of God that's located in the back of the head. And it is also known as the causal chakra. And then the causal chakra is what connects us to our anti-particle self, which is like the beginning and the base to our subconscious. So it talks about the mouth of God, or the 9th chakra, being where the silver cord then meets and anchors into the crown chakra. to allow your kundalini to be able to travel properly and release out of your material system. So again, I was talking about the ninth chakra. That is one of the most common areas for entity implants, is in that causal chakra area in the back of the head, which is at the top of the spine, connecting into the brain. So let's see. Talks about biological warfare, archonic deception behavior strategy. So this implant tick function will impulse addiction symptoms for a multitude of reasons, mostly to continue the spiritually destructive behavior into multiple repetitions to embed deeper into the light body of the targeted person. The more you repeat the self-destructive action, the closer you are to invasion, to possession, by a reptilian negative agenda or satanic level of force. Once your auric energy body or light body is invaded, you are a slave and automation to be used by the negative agenda and human controller groups. Generally, a person is unknowingly influenced by these alien implants and will be driven to obsession, an obsession for whatever the addictive substance or thought form is. If the addiction is sexual in nature, the tick will continue to burrow itself in the astral soul matrix body to collect more of it. When the addiction matrix and its mechanism is in full swing, the person is haunted and driven by cravings that they feel they cannot control, which spirals their life into destruction, pain, and suffering. Most of the severe addictions are sourced in causal point of energy body trauma, and that damage is located in the etheric nadis in the fourth chakra and the deep second chakra complex of the person. The fourth chakra is the heart chakra. So the heart chakra and the sacral. All severe addictions on the planet are caused by these severe soul fragmentations caused by astral body splitting and therefore damage to the nervous system, etheric nodule complex, nodule system, and light body energy receivers, and later the brain itself. Therefore, all addiction can be ultimately healed by soul fiber and nodule plexus repair to reorganize the central nervous system and the brain impulses. Since the person is his or her most powerful healer, and this information has been hidden from the masses, it creates a block in healing addiction problems for many. People do not understand the causation of most severe addictions are entity possession that is promoted by the most harmful addiction network in their own submission to the consent of the mind control system. Many times, this thought form and addictive pattern is inherited genetically and passed down to the family of origin bloodline. This is super, super important stuff to truly understand the addiction process and to ultimately not just free yourself from addiction, but to also come to a more deeper and spiritual understanding of what is it that my brother and sister is going through right now? Why is it that they are such a beautiful being and they have great intentions, but for some reason in their unconscious self and their impulse self, something is continuing to grab at them to continue to drink alcohol. Something is continuing to grab at them to continue to sexualize women. They're a great person, but for some reason, these shadowy things keep coming up with them. This is really helping us open our eyes even wider to seeing that it's really not about blaming and shaming each other, that there's something way deeper, psychologically and spiritually, that is in place, that is influencing and manipulating us. And of course, you know, the hiding of knowledge, the hiding of information as well, such as this kind of info. So I'm gonna click on soul fragmentations real quick, and then I'm gonna play a short video of these two wonderful ladies, and they're gonna talk about how we are prone to addiction when we are obsessive or obsessive with our sacral chakra, our second chakra. And we kind of touched on this a little bit in the reading so far. And then after the video, we are going to be joined for the second time this week. Our wonderful sister, Phoenix, returns out of Costa Rica, and she'll be talking about her wisdom and knowledge that she would like to share regarding this topic as well. So, soul fragmentation. The more soul fragmented and damaged a person's energetic body is operating or not operating at all, the more distorted and incoherent the thoughts and behaviors become. And this is like, I don't want to use the word scary, but this is something crucial to really be aware of for the sake of empowerment, is that your vehicle and your vessel is a living organism. And when we're on autopilot and we're in that unconscious state, we kind of just free flow on autopilot, just thinking that, oh, this vehicle is just always going to be 100% and it's always going to be perfect. But in this free will world that we're in, we are subject in this living matrix to going through change. We are able to absorb energy. We are able to release energy. We are able to have our energy siphoned through our consent. And we are able to empower ourselves through our energy as well. But we can forget that when we're on autopilot and we become so blocked up from the interconnectionness of the living matrix that we're in. And then we get pulled more into that shadow matrix or that dead matrix where we're basically just a zombie. And then we're a vessel that's being used by another conscious being. So things to think about. So these deviations are manifested into addictions, soul fragmentations that is, perversions in a wide array of damaging personalities, disorders, or alternative identities that can be well observed in the individual as destructive to the self and destructive to others. When one is continually destructive towards self or others, eventually the soul matrix layers fragment and split apart. Sometimes they are attached into other timelines and negative entities. When a human being is soul split, they will exhibit mental confusion and tendencies that are called narcissism, schizophrenia, dissociative personality, sociopath, along with a lack of empathy for others, and an array of psychological distortions that potentially lead to insanity. Insanity is a description of consciousness fragmentation that generates the existence of hell realms, and is how easily recognized bodily possession through satanic or anti-life behaviors that are controlled by possessing entities, such as one of the collective negative thought forms of the fallen angelics. Insanity is a diseased mind as the consequence of a traumatized or disconnected soul, which leads the being to choose to continually inflict destruction and harm to the self and others. If continually destructive, spiritually abusive behavior is not stopped or healed, it will damage the soul further through mental fragmentation and genetic degradation. Insanity is a way to define negative behaviors which create soul destruction, those self-inflicted actions which ultimately disconnect the body and mind from the soul matrix. So it talks about deception behavior and how they groom us through conditioning and mind control to live in anti-life behaviors and basically ultimately self-destruct ourselves and self-destruct each other. And this is why we have to do the work. Like when we say like we got to do the work, we got to do our shadow work, we got to do our self work, it's not just like a new age trend. It's not just a cliche that we talk about. This is the reason why. What we're talking about here in these spaces, these are the reasons why we talk about that you need to be sovereign, that you got to be accountable, that you got to do the work to heal, or shadow work and things of that nature. Because if not, all of these things are going to run rampant in your life and throughout our collective. until we become the ones that take responsibility of cleaning up this field. So then it talks about how fragmentation causes negative entity attachments. And see this correctly as well. Fragmentation causes negative entity attachments. So negative entity attachments don't just happen just to happen. They can only happen if our energy field is wounded or at a frequency that matches to attract negative entity attachments. And that happens through things like addiction, trauma, wounds, tears and leaks in our aura, and things of that nature. And then those energies can vibrationally attach and connect to those distortions in your field. So when a living thing is tormented by another for the purpose of causing extreme pain or suffering, the mind and soul can fracture into pieces. And those fractured pieces can remain trapped in phantom pockets that are controlled by that negative entity. This can happen at multiple dimensions of existence and stations of identity that are connected with the consciousness of that spiritual energetic being. The more fragmented the being, the more disconnected and less evolved the consciousness becomes. Through entropy, the consciousness sinks into the most primitive layers of existence, survival fears. Fragmentations may continue after the consciousness has transitioned from the physical body. And that's super key too, is understanding that fragmentation carries with your consciousness and spirit from your physical body, even when you leave this earth. And that is actually part of the reason why there's so much satanic ritual abuse on this planet, is because these negative entities understand the karmic loop system, and they fracture our souls so that we continuously have karmic attachments to this planet. And then we continuously keep incarnating unconsciously into these cycles to be taken advantage of. And that's how they harvest our loosh, as we call it. So the primary goal is to attempt to enslave human consciousness, setting traps to inflict pain, confusion, or terror. You can call this satanic ritual abuse, rape, torture, and killing of animals and humans to use the energy and continue their agendas. This also binds the human energy field with attachments that can be fed upon by the black hole entities. They form attachments from the negative energy they have consumed, binding the soul and spirit fragments that make up the consciousness of the person. Many of these negative entities consume negative emotional energy to enable their presence into the multidimensional layers of the earth field. Because their vibrational incompatibility with human frequency levels, they must rely on it consuming energy loosh, and sometimes the blood of a living creature, for maintaining their existence. The important lesson is to comprehend is that the destructive expressions of negative ego feeds into hatred vibrations, such as the intent to harm and the violent killing of other living things, actually fragments consciousness and feeds into the alien machinery. Reversals to build up negative emotional energy or loosh for siphoning. Wow. Then it gets even deeper. It talks about mental anxiety and how they purposely cause mental anxiety in our everyday behaviors. Forced identities, giving us false and forced identities, such as our straw man or our birth certificate, things of that nature. And then, of course, influencing us through media and propaganda on how we identify and who we should become and what we should look like as the average human. And believe it or not, those are all mind control techniques to draw you into addiction. Because, man, I don't look like that girl on that magazine cover. All right, let me go get Ozempic and let me go take these weight loss pills that Hollywood's advertising. Next thing you know, because I don't look like that lady on the magazine, I'm addicted to taking Ozempic. And I have all these negative side effects that are causing disease in my body because I compared myself to another woman. And now I'm taking these pills, I'm hooked on these pills. Now it's causing even more disease in my being. prime example. Boy. All right, so before we continue to talk about any more of just like clearing and moving through addiction, we're gonna take a little break from that, and I'm gonna play this short video of these ladies talking about how we can be prone to addiction through the misuse and excessiveness of our sacral chakra. And that we'll be joined by our divine sister, Phoenix Returns.
When we're excessive in this chakra, we're prone to either being that person or attracting someone in our life who's, I guess, prone to addictions or excessive emotions, you know, like really, really high versus really depressed, or poor boundaries, or that emotional dependency. Do any of these qualities show up for you in your life or with your students? How do you deal with them if they do?
So for me, as far as I can see, it's poor boundaries. I think that's for me personally as a teacher. Often I give out a lot and make myself available.
Really?
Overly. Yes. So I need to finding boundaries. I'm not attracting people who are, you know, like this is not part of my life. I'm very lucky, and I must say I'm a tree dosha, so I have all, you know, I'm tree doshic. So for me, I feel I'm very sensitive to these energies, and I know when to step back very quickly. So I'm very sensitive if I'm getting out of balance, and people who are overly anything. I'm receptive to that, and I'm trying to be the balance and live the balance and then take myself serious. So, and for others that maybe from the outside may look really selfish, and I know my twin sister, for example, used to, when I dived into this spiritual living I started with the yoga and the surfing and the reading about Buddhism, and she said to me that you are so selfish, you're just thinking about yourself. And now for that time I needed that little bubble of spiritual discovery and traveling, and, you know, cutting off from my normal social life for a while, but now she sees what comes out of that, you know, and she herself is going that way. So it was selfishness redefined for her to see that it's necessary, that you have to take the time and create your little shell within. You will practice and reflect and work on yourself to be available for the world in a more aligned way.
It's true. Sometimes we really need to really move out of certain circles, whether it's friends or family or even a country, to find ourselves.
Yeah.
Because if we keep doing the same thing with the same people, we'll still keep getting the same results. So if we're yearning for something different, you're right, we've got to go the other extreme.
Welcome to Grand Rising ChristoLight. We got our divine sister, Phoenix Returns, with us, and co-star. Grand day, sister. Good to see you. You're on mute.
So good to see you. Hello, everybody. What an important topic. The roots of addiction. I'm like getting emotional before I even can speak about it. It's like when you move on to this path of like enlightenment and freedom and sovereignty, and, you know, sometimes you can get a little tripped up and stop seeing where your holes are, like you've already arrived. And It's so crazy this topic is here today because I saw Marcus post about it as like we had just got back from outside and we decided to have a little burial of my tobacco pipe and even like our tools for serving rapé, like it's crazy because for me personally, I believed in the power of medicines in so many ways. And I've always believed in the responsible use of them. And then being intertwined in Costa Rica, which is very shamanic-ish, spiritual-ish, medicine-ish, you can start to really like come around circles where everybody's doing it and it becomes a normal thing. And like, you know, you're at a circle and people are taking rapé 2 times in an hour and you're just like, what? And you know, it's just like everybody's got their like organic, right? It's organic tobacco, right? And they roll it themselves, so it's cleaner, right? It's better than going and buying a pack with all the chemicals and all of the things. And you can like, there was a time I wouldn't touch tobacco. I would still have a little Santa Maria, but I would never even smoke a mix. And River's going, no more tobacco. So, you know, somehow, just to be really honest, like I got caught in the seduction. And I always had this standard for myself that I wouldn't buy it, you know, but somehow I was always around someone that had some and was happy to share it with me. And of course you are, right? Like, it's kind of like, I haven't touched alcohol in so many years. When you go over that, when you cross that hump of like not drinking tobacco or not drinking alcohol, it's like, you know, your friends that you bond with over that are like, where you at? Come on. They want to still feel, you know, like everything is cool. You need some enablers around you. You need to feel like it's still okay. And when people start stepping out of the circle, you're like, oh shit, let me look at this for a minute, you know? And so anyways, you know, after my near death, I was able to wake up very quickly to alcohol being an absolute full fuck no for me. I could feel the level of spirit entity that was going on in that, and pretty much just didn't touch anything for a really long period of time. And then when I moved to Costa Rica, I got introduced into different types of psychedelics, and I can't deny the power of these medicines when used responsibly. And I can't deny the level of massive addiction that's going on with people that literally look like they're on medicine all the time, but certainly aren't feeling like they've found their way back home, you know? And there's a balance here of like, what does it take to heal yourself? And why does it take this or that? And, or this or that substance or this or that person? And so, yeah, I started to recognize this little tobacco thing with me. It's like, oh, it's organic and it's just in my pipe. And, you know, all the justifications of it, it like kills nanotech. And, you know, this is the trick in your mind. It will try to justify keeping it around, right? And it's so crazy. I ended up watching a video yesterday and it was talking specifically about the dark side of tobacco. And, you know, we're taught this side of like Indians and tribes and natives and plant medicine, but then it shows like the real structure of like how tobacco was basically used as a currency and how it was massively addictive and people were not able to override their addiction and their desire for the substance. And that's what made it boom so big. And they were talking about how tobacco was actually like the operating system for the monetary. It's like, whoa, when you start to see it like that, and you start to recognize like, oh my gosh, there is something in this, right? And you could fill it in with any substance here. You know, whatever, pick your poison, right? We all have different addictions, and addictions don't have to necessarily be a so-called medicine or a plant, right? They can be addictions to thoughts. They can be addiction to patterns, to reactions, to feelings. They can be addictions to technology. They can certainly be addictions to foods. You know, these ones are a little more socially addicted. Like, these are more socially acceptable, that you can go pull up to a restaurant and have, a 3,000 calorie meal and just tear it down, and like, it's all good. So ultimately, this all goes back to, like, we have to move out of the judgment, the guilt, and the shame, but we need to be very freaking real with ourselves, where we're being taken over by something, where our body temple is not being honored as the crystalline structure that it is. And for me to have such a deep understanding in the light body and the light body mechanics and the crystalline body, it's like every time I clean my pipe, I was like, this is not crystalline. This is black goo. And I am willingly introducing my crystalline technology to this black goo. And there's something within me that is justifying and overriding this temptation, and trying to put in all the words and all the scripts of like why it's a medicine, it helps with cleaning energy. And I'm not even going to deny, my experience with, these are the justifications you have. I'm like, wow, I have had very healing conversations with people through tobacco. I've been able to relate to another type of person that's gone through a lot of heavy things in their life. I've been able to handle kind of shamanically sitting with the wounds and the traumas of others, with the things that they've gone through in their life, like whatever it is that we use to justify it. And so last night, it was by my daughter, River, who is 5 years old. It was her initiation. She told me to light a candle. She told me to get all of the things that we have. And she told me that we were burying everything under the earth. And I was like, shit, okay. I take a picture. We've got like all of our rapé pipes and cannabis pipes and tobacco pipes. And I mean, we do really work in the shamanic fields and serve medicines and all the things. I'm feeling all my attachment to it. I'm like, to actually like bury it means there is no going back. Like, it was like, and so anyways, I'm like, fine, in the name of my daughter, let's go here. So we're playing some Mary Magdalene music, digging holes in the earth last night, burying these things. And literally when they put my tobacco pipe in the earth, I literally went through like a full body shiver of my chest right here. And it was like literally something dying, if you know what I'm saying. It was like whatever it is that was sitting in here, allowing me to siphon, it was like, oh, no more, motherfucker. It was just like, it had to leave my body. I was like saying goodbye to something. It was dying. I do not want to be inhabited. I do not want any implants. I'm here to, in fact, extract implants. And I never want to overlook the idea that I could have a possession myself, that I could have an implant myself, that I could call myself an implant remover and not carry one in my own physical structure, which was utilizing my body to smoke black goo, if you would want to call it that, and to justify it as a shamanic healing practice. And so, wow, I'm still processing all of that. But I wanted, when we got back inside, River, she's 5 years old. She told me, now we know how the darkness works. It's like out of the mouth of babes. It's like, it's that easy. And I always trust that I go through personal things so that I can understand them and have more compassion. But all of us, we all have addictions in some way. You can get through anything. And I think the real first start is that you bring it out into the light, because you think you'll handle it on your own, but you don't want to bring in accountability. But when you start to bring it up to the light and you start to talk about it, it can't, the darkness can't hang on. And then you start to bring your support system in to assist you with that and to hold you accountable to your light body wanting to be free. And so, you know, I was just writing down last night, I'll go first, you know, I'll move out of this, I'll get out of this. Like, I see the ones that are having the medicines around me, and there's like, you know, smoke stained hands and smoke stained teeth. And it's like, thankfully I haven't gotten to that point, and I don't want to. I don't want to get that taken over. And I was getting taken over because I didn't want to admit that I was. And it's so innocent, you know. It's like, I know there are much deeper addictions out there. I know that there are people that have sold their souls to some of these heroines and cocaines, and I'm so glad I didn't dance in this world. But at the same time, it's like tobacco and cannabis and rapid, all of these things that we're putting in our body. You know, I have such a free flow and a fascination with the psychedelic realm, but it's becoming the new age addiction, you know, and it's still not bringing us into the wholeness and the healing. And I pride myself on freedom and sovereignty. And if there is an impulse that's coming through me that is not my own, and I don't have the power to say no to it, I'm not sovereign. And I want to be sovereign in all ways, and to really respect my light body temple. And I really feel like, yeah, I'm being called to step up and raise the bar. And this is not the first time that it's come through that, you know, I'm here to help people with addiction. And it's like, I needed to understand it in a way that I couldn't understand it before. And then when River said that, you know, now we know how the darkness works. And she was saying we have to bring the dark and the light together. And she kept like putting her hands like that. But it was like, I had to have compassion for the understanding that something could override, like, you know, it's not good for your body. You can feel it. You can feel the lungs. You can see the frequency field declining. And yet there's some kind of justification or need or impulse for it. And so in my mind, I was like, well, I just accept whatever is offered to me. I just accept whatever arrives. But no, sometimes you get put in positions where you actually have to utilize your own muscle, your own bone, and say no. And to like really override the temptation in that now moment. That's your real yoga. That's your real encounter, is to be like, no, I'm done. I'm finished. And it's not easy. Like, all of my body is still going, I want that. Even with all of this that I'm saying, I can feel this justification of like, I don't want to say that I'll never do that again. You know, I don't like to put that limitation on things, but like, it does feel like something really big happened yesterday. And it helps even more to hear what Marcus was reading in the deeper understanding of the mechanics of how this thing is working in the body, how implants work. This is heartless parasite type of shit. And yeah, we got to stop feeding our parasites. You know, we got to stop. There are things that want to operate through our body to keep us at lower frequencies, and you are in control. And to really empower yourself into that, and to make that decision that you get to choose. You always do get to choose. It's not easy, but you always get to choose. And like, what is that crossing the line point where you don't go back? You know, where you go, I'm fucking done, I'm over this. And you don't go, but you're leaving room for the next temptation. You know, it's like, bring it out in the open, bring it out in the light. This is one of the ways to do it, so that we can really come together. And then you got to replace, right? You got to replace. Addictions are often because you're bored. Like, most people I know that are addicted to pornography or addicted to technology, they're just bored. They don't have connection and you know, community. They don't have things to do. It's like, oh, pop on the TV or go watch this or go smoke this. It's like, yeah, we need to get around each other more. We're missing actual connection and community, and we need that human connection, human, not isolating connection, but like, yeah. So thanks for letting me share a very timely, very important topic. And now we know how the dark works.
Ashe, and thank you to River. Thank you for the angel River. Wow. That is so profound for you to share today. And it makes sense why we're here today. You know, spirit never fails in the synchronicities of why we're present. And man, that is so powerful, what you just shared. And I could not thank you enough for having the courage to come on and share that. Not everyone has that kind of courage right now to honestly just own their flaws, to own their shadows. And you know, that's part of being a leader on this planet and what it means to really embody the truth is
No, thank you. It's
to
humbling.
not
Like
only
it's
portray yourself to the like a lot of high dimensional codes, but at the same time, we're multi-dimensional beings, and while we're inhabiting these vessels and incarnated on this third dimensional plane, I also struggle with these type of addictive behaviors in my life as well. And it's okay, because we're all doing this together. We're all elevating what it means to be a human and trying to embody what it means to be our higher self. So again, thank you for sharing that. And it's so powerful that River was the conduit or the bridge for that experience. It just really speaks for itself. And you really keyed in on a lot of things I feel like I know I have definitely observed throughout my own self and throughout these spiritual communities that I feel like needs to be talked about more on these live collective platforms. And that is the running rant of these addictive tendencies and behaviors in these spiritual communities. I mean, I can name it over and over where I have seen people abuse Hape over and over and over, just like you were talking about. And it's like being justified because, you know, it's not considered like an illegal drug, or it's not considered as strong as, you know, an ayahuasca or anything of that nature. But what I've noticed is that I've literally seen people around me that take it any chance they have. They're also just sitting and just doing it with other people. They're not bringing in intentions into it. They're not actually making it into a ceremony. They're not honoring what the true health benefits are from it, but ultimately just in an unconscious loop and cycle of their old addictive tendencies now being replaced with another substance just because it's a quote unquote cleaner substance. And it's really sad to see. I've seen it really firsthand, even, I'll be honest, in Costa Rica while I was there. You know, I saw it happening with people that were a part of the retreat. People were abusing Hape. And then it got to a point where one of the people there that was given permission to use the Lotus Hape that we had would end up sneaking around using it more and more behind people's backs so that they were able to use it. And, you know, those kind of things, the unseen energies behind that entanglement, that can then leak into the spaces that we are in. And that's as a space holder or non-space holder. You know, once these entities and energies start swirling around in your auric field, then it's fair game for them to be able to interact, because now they're brought to life through you. And then what can happen is, especially as a space holder, you can then be bringing in those contaminations with you through your addictive tendencies. and then allow that to permeate in the field that you're holding. And then that can be a disaster for those that are going to you to receive healing, self-empowerment, self-realization. But then energetically, those leakages from the entities and your addictive tendencies could literally be permeating into your Reiki, into your sound healing, into interactions that you're having. So it's very key, especially if we're going to take this path of being a sacred space holder, a shaman, a light worker, things of that nature. We really got to be honest with ourselves. You know, do I need to kind of cut back on some of these addictive tendencies that I'm having? Whether it's with hape, whether it's with cannabis, whether it's with cacao, or whether it's with having to be seen and being the one with the spiritual identity that is the guru or is the one that knows everything. Even that's an addiction. We haven't really touched on spiritual identity addiction or just identity addiction, period, and how people will use their addiction to their spiritual identity as a cop-out, as a reason to manipulate, and as a reason to put themselves on a pedestal. And that ties right into addiction as well, because I've seen many, and I've almost seen myself fall into that pattern, but I was conscious enough to see it. And I've really seen it from others though. And one thing I just want to share for discernment for everyone is just really tune into the behaviors, the energy, and pay attention to the consistencies and inconsistencies of what you're interacting with, especially if it's consistent and continuous interactions. And try not to blind yourself. Try not to blind yourself with those spiritual identities, as in, oh, well, I know this person, I met them at this festival, I met them at this retreat, they facilitate yoga, and they also do breath work. But you don't know anything else about them though. You know, you don't know what their everyday life is like. You don't know how they're treating their people at home. You don't know how they're handling their responsibility. And these kind of things are pretty important when it comes to deep changes and interactions with an individual in order to feel fulfilled within their own self. And to feel like they have a purpose, to feel like they are worthy. And then on top of that, you got to think about too, like if you or someone else is coming to another individual and you're already coming from a fragile, vulnerable, and wounded place, that is also an active addiction, continuously interacting with these negative forms and energies, then what can easily happen is through that space holding session that you have, not only does your trauma get unhealed, but it can actually be made worse, and it can perpetuate it. Because now we have taken on energy of a practitioner that isn't doing their own self-work. So just like a vacuum or just like a vortex of energy through their vessel, the disease and entities transmit with the Reiki energy into you. So these are just things to look out for when it comes to the external world and the way that you're allowing energies to interact with you, and how addiction can really affect these interactions more than, oftentimes we can think that, addiction only affects ourselves. But those of us that have been around addiction, especially heavy addiction, like addiction of, like myself, losing my friends to death as a teenager in my late teens because of their heroin addiction, fentanyl addiction. That stuff affects people. It affects your family, it affects your friends, it affects your children. And we can be in denial all that we want, but we all know what denial does, and it just pushes it even deeper. But when we can accept that, yeah, these things are damaging, not only to myself, but to others, then we can access and find that place of grace, giving ourselves mercy and understanding the truth of who we are. And that is that we are alchemists, we are a spiritual being, and that we're not victim to this, but we can face this, we can access love, we can ask for help and support from those that love us, and continue to build and move through this. And that's one of the biggest keys too, is asking for help. Don't try to take on everything on your own, especially when you're deep in it. If you have good community, good family and friends that have some type of understanding of this, or at least are open enough to be able to receive and give you support, please use it. Because man, support is everything.
Cancel, clear, delete all contracts. You don't even know when you made a deal sometimes, but you have. And it's like, when you start to identify that addiction is the root of an impulse, or what you might call an entity, right? Which is a thought form. And then you can start to identify this entity going, feed me, feed me, feed me, give me more, give me more. And you're just like, wait, bitch, who is that? That is not me. And then it's like, okay, who am I keeping alive here? Me or that thing? And it's like, see, that's a little different as like taking it all in and like integrating it. Like, I'm actually removing the fracture. I'm identifying something that actually is not me, that's maintaining a fracture. It's like your light body is going, no. But this thing, this implant is going, feed me, feed me, feed me. So the real part of this game is getting over that hump of those first days of temptation, of that loud voice going, feed me, give me this, need this. And that's why, like, when you bury something in the ground, like, you put it to bed, you put it to rest. And I mean, I know that then you could just run out and go find it again if you want to, but it's like you're working on building an organ or a muscle that is stronger than that thing, whatever you want to call that, and with whatever substance that it is. It could be a cheeseburger. It doesn't matter. It's cheeseburger, tobacco, heroin, ayahuasca, whatever. At the end of the day, the only addiction that I want is an addiction to being fully embodied with the fucking light. That's it. That is the only addiction that I have. I want to return my soul completely to be fully embodied as the avatar consciousness that I came here to be. And I'm willing to purify myself to a level that allows that level of embodiment. And I'm going to pull the wool from my eyes, this firmament, this dome, this thing that keeps me from seeing, so that I can see more clearly what it is that I've been in denial of, that's keeping me from bringing the heavens down fully. There's a gene key, the 24, which is the shadow of addiction, and its programming partner is the synarchy. And so the synarchy, gene key 44, cannot come into building until we unlock this addiction. And addiction could just be mental thoughts and patterns. It doesn't even have to be something physical. There's something really important you talked about, though, as well, about addiction to spiritual identity. And wow, it's so important. It's like, and ultimately, you know, there's this idea still being put on a pedestal of, even the word shaman sometimes can actually just be a justification for using a bunch of medicine. And it's like, what I'm really looking for in my daily interaction with anyone, doesn't matter what they dress like, doesn't matter what all their accolades, all their histories, all their resumes, how many people they've healed, how many medicines they've served. It matters how they feel in the field. And this is true integrity, and this is true transparency. You sit in the field with someone long enough and you start to get a reading and a sense of. And so we're all, a lot of times our biggest addiction too is where we're living a lie and being someone that we actually aren't on all levels. In fact, I say that's what all illness is from. Like when someone is having like illness or sickness in their body, I'm like, okay, let's make this easy. Where are you living a lie? And poof. You know, it's nothing more than that. Where are you living a lie? Where are you pretending to be something that you're not on any level? And that's where you'll start to like, that's where the fractures, that's where the wounds, and that's where you got to get radically responsible and super honest with yourself to start to identify those things. And that can be like humbling, because you have to admit your faults. You have to admit your shadows. You have to see them. You have to, speaking of, at some point, I want to read the unlocking of sacred seal number 2, which is connected to the sacral chakra, and it's specifically the wound of denial. And so it is about denial, like the inability to see what it is that needs to be seen. And for that dove to kind of come through, I'm saying like the dove, like the Holy Spirit, like you have to come into the omniscience and be able to see from the outside of yourself. So when you're like fiending for something, or you're going through this process, can you take yourself up and observe yourself from the more non-physical state, all your patterns, reactions, behaviors, thoughts, impulses? Like, can you watch it from sitting up high and be like, what's going on down there? Not from a judgment necessarily, but like, oh, I couldn't see when I was down in there, but now I can see. And so when you open up and unveil, reveal, you're able to see what it is that you were in denial of seeing before. Like a lot can really move. And that's, we are our own healers. This is so important. I'm not saying that there aren't guideposts and energies along the way that can be of assistance, but when you really empower yourself in that deep way, you know, that's a righteousness, and that's a real shamanic practice that we all have within ourselves, is that no one is unable to do this work. And in fact, you are the only one that can do it. And so even though there might be someone that helps you out in some type of way, you're the one, and you're the one that no one else healed you ever. That's like a real big, that's called not giving your power away ever again to another. And that's called someone not sitting in the Messiah healer position either, because only you can heal yourself. And that means if I'm the only one that can heal myself, you're the only one that can heal yourself. And it's through our authentic expression and like coming out and talking about the things that we want to hide to keep any kind of facade or like image, that we actually move through the healing. And so it's obvious that there was a responsibility for me to start to come out and talk about this, because if I'm going through it, other people must be going through it. And the only way to go through it is to get transparent and real about it, so that we can really open up that field. And it's not anything that anyone else could have done for me. You know, it's like a decision that you have to bring from within yourself, and that's that spontaneous combustion to be able to work through those hard initial parts, that next level initiation to come into this wholeness.
Yes. It's a choice we gotta make for ourselves.
So I just wanted to share this from Ascension Glossary as well. And this kind of brings us into the other contrast of how do we fortify our energy field? How do we fortify the strength of our endurance through this human life? Because that's one of the keys, is like, how do we develop sustainable endurance with our vital nature and our sustainability? And here's 12 practices of self-awareness from Lisa Renee that you can practice to help embody self-awareness, as well as GSF behavior model, which is God Sovereign Free. So it says to meditate and give attention to these 12 areas to practice better personal self-awareness and discipline the negative ego and pain body. When you are self-aware, you are informed and clear, and you are less prone to mind control and related levels of archonic deception behavior. What we endeavor at this time is to move away from inner confusion and move towards discovering inner clarity. As we discover self-awareness, which is the knowledge of the self, we are developing right relationship to the self, and thus we can better develop our relationship with God's source. We cannot know the highest expression of our nature until we know the deepest inner contents of our own being. Self-study is self-mastery and is the pathway to expanding consciousness. So 12 practices of self-awareness. We have acceptance, archetypes of drama, attention, compassionate witness, confront beliefs, emotional balance, forgiveness, gratitude, neutral, quiet the mind, recovering personal power, and spheres of influence. So I'm gonna go ahead and share just a couple of these to give you guys some ideas. So we have acceptance. Learn to practice acceptance and adaptability to where you find yourself in your life right now. Believe in a higher power and a purpose greater than yourself. Be willing to choose something else and invite other possibilities into your life. Let go of needing to be right, needing to be hurt, needing to accept the circumstances and people involved as limitations right where they are now. We have the archetypes of drama. So we have deepening the awareness and observation of ourselves as we identify the archetypes and characters that run around in our mental ideas and personality that we show the world. These characters are the key players in creating your emotional drama reactions and their sabotaging behavior patterns. We can especially use the victimizer archetypes and victimizer collective archetypes page to identify, locate, remove, and repair obsolete and harmful architectures or archetypes of drama and trauma from running our lives in our present, past, and future. And that's even like programming about like our history, about race, cultures, all these different things. That's what we call drama. They keep us in that mental drama, mentally and emotionally, when it comes to the past and what has happened in history and what has happened to women in the past and what has happened to Black people in the past, and, you know, shame the white man and Black people were only slaves and things like that. That's archetypes of drama. It's continuous, made up, perpetuated drama that is a mental mind control program to then send shock waves to our mind, body, emotions so that we, in so many different ways, either freeze up or become fractured, or we become divided inside of psychology because we see white people as the devil, or because we feel like our history as Black people only goes back to being slaves and that's it. That's archetypes of drama. Made up unnecessary drama to keep us in a psychological loop. It gets so deep. I mean, especially when it comes to race and culture and religion. You know, you have dark skin, you need to automatically identify as a slave. Like, come on, man. And that's where the victimizer, the victim and victimizer programming comes in as well. It basically sets you up that you grow up and see yourself as a victim of society. That's why you go to the ghetto and you see so many black people and black kids that are like, oh, this is how I'm supposed to live. This is what I was destined to be. This is what I was born to be. You know, someone in the ghetto. And I'm a black man just growing up in society. Those are victimizing programs to make you never feel like you're worthy of being in your power. Same with women, and same with the men versus women paradigm. So then we have attention. So where do you focus your attention? That should be your main priority, is where do you give your mentalism? Everything is mind, all is mind. So where you feed your mind, you're going to feed more of that energy. So mastering your focus is mastering your freedom. Meditation is a skill of focusing 100% of your energy and attention in one specific area in the present moment. How long can you sustain your focused attention in one area through meditation? That's something you can do, is strengthen your focus. So go into meditation and see how long you can focus on your breath, or see how long you can focus on something beautiful in your life, and try to fortify your strength, your muscle, and your ability to have focus of your mind. We'd be surprised how many of us can never actually focus our mind, because we're thinking about the future, the past, we're thinking about what was said in the news, we're thinking about the drama of our family. All these different things keep us in that monkey mind, that chatter. And we may not even realize that we don't even focus our energy all day. It's just being rammed by the outside world and by the imbalances swirling in our field. So then we have compassionate witness. This is where you're able to be a neutral observer of one point of God's lights dispensed as loving compassion through your body and into the world and towards others. This is the compassionate witness. The power of compassion is directed naturally by the intelligent design of God's living essence when embodied in a human that has achieved a neutral observer mode. So this is when you choose not to take personal everyone else's process, what they're going through, what they're karmically and vibrationally aligned with, but to understand that not only do I have free will and I am connected to the source, but everyone else has free will and they're connected to the source. And if that wasn't the case, then that's not the case for me as well. I'm not subject to being connected or being more of the source than anyone else. That's where compassionate witnessing comes in. And then confront beliefs. Confronting beliefs, this is like confronting your negative thought forms, your limiting beliefs that keep coming up in the mind, confronting what feels like authority structures, which are actually false structures, and just really identifying those, whether it's inside your mind or out loud, either way, and identifying that inside your own mind, that I do not consent to this belief system. I do not believe that I have to worship a figure or being outside of me in order for me to feel connected to the Creator. Emotional balance, balancing the emotions. The main balancing the emotions is at the heart chakra. The root chakra is going to be your foundation for your emotions. So it's going to be the stability, the regulation of your emotions. The heart chakra is going to be feeling the unconditional love of heaven and earth together as one. And then through the crown chakra, you can feel upliftment and continuous regeneration and life force being brought into your emotions. And that's the Trinity, Mother, Father, and you're the Christ, the Merkaba. So how clear is that? How clear is your circulation through your chakras? How clear is your chi flow through your meridians? Gratitude. being able to redirect your mind and emotions to gratitude in times of turmoil and stress is a great power. Neutrality, quiet the mind. Neutrality is so powerful too, because a lot of us don't realize is that we perpetuate our own attachments by continuing to hyper focus on them. We gotta fix this now. We gotta change this now. We gotta do this. We gotta do that. It's this or that. And we begin to just expense more and more of our day. Sometimes quietness is good. Answers, but to just let go and just be neutral. Wow. So I'll finish with this for this section. It says GSF behaviors. So these are behaviors that can help you bring healthy emotions and peace as well. And that is having empathy and compassion, working on self-esteem and building trust with your own self and your spirit, mental openness, regaining emotional stability, taking responsibility for your mind, body, emotions in your field, honesty, recognizing sovereignty, taking a reality assessment. I like that. Reality assessments are great. I love doing that every once in a while, especially when I feel like I'm getting kind of off course a little bit with my balance. I love to just kind of sit back and be like, okay, what am I giving my time to? What am I allowing in my energy field right now? What am I continuing to be triggered by? And I just like to think about those things every once in a while, whether I'm journaling or just reflecting in my mind. And with that, just observing like, okay, maybe I can give a little bit less attention to this. Or maybe instead of spending money on this, I can cut this out of my spending so that I'm not continuing to feed this addictive tendency. And just really getting to that and then getting into a 0-point reset with ourselves. Releasing, and then also releasing to receive new light and new dawn into our consciousness. And then we have unified cooperation. So this cooperating in knowing that you are unified, which is a paradox in itself, to say the least. Because you're like, wait, I'm an individual. We're all separate. But no, we're all connected. We're all unified. And I swear, we go through that every day as a human. So yeah, those are some practices to help develop the strengthening and fortification to avoid addiction and to release addictive energies from our energy field. Good old Lisa Renee, man.
It's so easy. It's so perfect. It's like so empowering. You know, the first time I ever heard of the pain body, this is a really important one for us to recognize, because to me, the pain body also has to do with what might be called the lower astral. And it's like, I read this in The New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. It was one of the first books that kind of came into my path maybe about 10 years ago. And it was, in the very beginning of the journey for me, was all about emotional intelligence. That was super clear, like healing emotion, you know, rewriting emotion, just like no longer being a reactor, but really being able to like observe, witness, breathe through something and not let something take me for a ride, like to really come into that type of sovereignty was one of my first missions and practices. And he was talking about how everyone has a pain body and that the pain bodies are addicted to drama. And that if somebody comes into your field and their pain body is heightened, then it will activate your pain body, because pain bodies are addicted. Here's the addiction, right? The pain bodies are addicted to fighting. And so when I started to recognize the possibility of something like that, I was like, oh, you know, all of a sudden, whereas before I would have fallen into the trap of someone's pain body, in this now moment with this level of conscious awareness, and I didn't need to be right or, you know, need to be on top or anything like that. I only needed to win energetically. And so what that meant was that I was going to override my own pain body, whereas somebody's pain body came in and it wanted to fight. And in that moment now, I could recognize my pain body and I could dismantle it. I could observe it, I could witness it, and I could breathe through it and really basically transfigure myself, transmute this energy. It didn't need to be lashed out. It didn't need to be played with. It didn't need to trauma bond. And that is like one way that I utilize the understanding of the pain body to really, and you could say the same for like desire and addiction and even in the gene keys here, I have gene key 22 open. It's talking about activating the Corpus Christi body, the body of the Christ, the rainbow light body. And so the astral body has to do, you know, the transmitting of all human emotion and desire. And so, and the pleasure and the pain of the body, and ultimately there being kind of like an astral hell and an astral heaven, so to speak. And it's like, yeah, so all our desires, all our thoughts, all our feelings, all of our emotions are kind of stored in these spaces and places, which leads to such an important topic. It's the purification of the lower astral body. And I say, you know, astral hygiene needs to be just as important as, you know, body hygiene, right? Like if you don't wash and clean yourself, you'll start to smell. If you don't floss your teeth, you might start to get cavities. And so we know we have to have body hygiene. So astral hygiene is also a requirement, or you can get parasites, you know, it's that easy. And so when the astral body is being purified, and that's gene key 30, the rapture is actually about the purification of the lower astral body. And it's the shadow of desire. It's not judging desire, but it's saying you can utilize desire without acting on it to allow yourself to come into higher planes of consciousness and existence. And our ultimate desire is to become one with God. That is our ultimate desire. Anything else that we do in between there is the need to try to feed that desire, and we look for love in all the wrong places. You know, when you are connected directly back to the source, you're not hungry for that love outside. We're on the path of wholeness. We're on the path of returning home, returning to the one. So those are just like some tips. And then I always bring up the map of consciousness on a lot of the videos I've been doing lately, the David Hawkins map of consciousness, because it has acceptance, empathy, compassion. Like it shows you all of the emotions, just like a menu. And at any given time, you can respond with guilt, anger, judgment. Or I always say, if you can just get to neutral, better yet, if you can just get to acceptance, you know, then you can really start to work with more of the heart causal plane to be able to navigate not falling down, you could say, into a victim of the lower nature consciousness, which shame, guilt, judgment, that's where the negative thought patterns feed. You know, that's where the parasites like to hang out. They're not really hanging out in the greens. You know, they're hanging out in the reds and oranges, just to kind of give you a color spectrum. I think in colors, sometimes it's like in these lower color spectrums, it's like, I understand there's a rainbow with a mass amount of colors and they're all beautiful and they all come together. And also, like, you start to understand as we're moving into the crystalline dimensions, we're moving out of the core color patterns into more of the crystalline configurations. You can start to see that type of art. It's a little more pastel. It's a little more crystalline. We're moving into a crystalline structure. We're moving from a carbon to a crystalline. And so as we're crystallizing, right, we're going to fly, levitate, have our wings come in, and we're going to move ourselves out of some of these lower dimensional planes of reality. I don't like to necessarily like measure it like high and low and good and bad, but everything has a frequency to it, and we can attune to certain patterns, behaviors, or frequencies, you know? So building the body of light and astral hygiene and purification is one of the keys. And yeah, look at this, you know, you can kind of just see it. You know, you get to decide at any given moment. There are choices here. You can see when you are in that contracted area, right? You can kind of feel in those like grief, fear, desire, anger, pride. And then you start to creep up, right? Into those greens and those aquas, courage, neutrality, willingness, acceptance, right? So you've got a little more openness. And that's why if we can just get to neutral, you can really start to grow those angel wings, those levitation wings, where we don't get pulled down into the densities every time. And so at every now given moment, this is the real meditation. This is the true practice. This is the real medicine. In the now moment that shit's hitting the fan, can you get yourself to neutral? Better yet, can you get yourself to acceptance? You know, and that's the difference between reactor and creator. Same letters, reacting, like puzzled by everything, why these patterns keep showing up, versus creator, where you're like, oh, I am somehow an architect of my reality, whether I could remember that fully or not. Now I'm going to start to be really real with myself about the patterns that I bring to myself over and over again. And when I start to realize that the patterns I bring to myself are because I need to do something within myself, because there's a resonance there that's bringing this pattern, and I've been in denial and I'm not seeing the pattern. And so here I go again, pattern. I like to break patterns. I don't need to learn my lesson more than once. I don't need to beat myself up a million times over something. You know, it's like the better we can get at, again, these are the practices that matter. You could do breath work, you could do meditation, you could do yoga, but it's in the moment that the pattern comes again. And instead of you responding in the same old way, you go, oh, wait, I'm creating this pattern. I've got to take ownership for that. I got to take responsibility for that. Let me look at this from the higher planes. Let me look at this through the eagle eye view here so I can see the bigger picture. Let's rewrite this code. I don't need to learn from these patterns over and over and over again. I'm a quick learner. I can figure this one out, you know, and rise above. So we always have that chance to do that, to break out anytime we're ready. And it's like, yeah, breaking out of patterns, breaking out of old versions of ourselves, breaking out of old reactions, breaking out of old thoughts. We're in a constant level of evolution and purification, and you are not obligated to maintain an old structure or performance of yourself. At any given moment, you can literally rewrite your code. And wow, and it could be shocking to others, but you're not here to maintain someone else's understanding of you either. That is one of the things that keeps us from growing and expanding. We're addicted to external approval and understanding, but we're being called to rise, move, shake, break. And it's not personal, right? And you are rewarded through the energy field when you start to play in more of an energy way, and you start taking the outer and going more in the inner and starting to understand, oh, form follows frequency. I'm in the command center inside here. And when I bring everything that's going on outside me and I get centered within myself and I get in that command center of compassionate witnessing, of neutral observation, now I can see clearly. And yeah, you can rewrite and architect your reality around these practices pretty simply if you're willing to see and not in denial.
Well, man, what a episode today. I wanted to leave off reading a little bit from the Kabbalion for us, Hermetic philosophy. And this has been one of my favorite passages out of the Kabbalion for ever since I've really known about it. And this has always stood out to me, and I'll always have it sticky noted in this. And this is in the beginning of the book, before it even gets into, the actual numbered pages. So it begins like this. The Kabbalion tells us that nothing rests, everything moves, everything vibrates. In ordinary human consciousness, that which experiences is entangled with that which is experienced. We believe we are what we experience. We believe we are the thoughts and emotions that pass through the mind. We become what we behold. It can be difficult to detach the two, but I believe that this is precisely the goal of many forms of meditation. The self as pure witness watches all phenomena, mental and physical, inner and outer, pleasant and unpleasant, as images passing across the screen of the mind. In this sense, we can say that all is mental. Notice also that the interaction between self and phenomena can itself vary. Self can identify with contents of its experience, or it can detach itself from them. It seems likely to me that neither of these stances is absolute, and indeed, they can alternate, or appear to alternate rapidly in many cases. Self-identities with its contents, then it detaches itself from them. Let us go further and concede that this process takes place at all levels of manifestation, from that of the subatomic particle to the atom to our own level and beyond. It is, in my view, entirely legitimate to speak of the consciousness of the atom. If we posit some kind of process whereby this goes on constantly and, shall we say, habitually, we now see the source of the vibration that Kabbalion describes, and which, as it points out, is the standard feature of the universe. Because this process takes place at all levels and scales of reality, we also see the source of the correspondence among all levels, the Kabbalion asserts. In fact, these considerations help explain all the basic principles of the Kabbalion. In addition to the ones that I have mentioned, we have polarity. This is the polarity between self and the world, between that which experiences and that which is experienced. Gender, self and other, that which experiences and that which is experienced, corresponded to the masculine and feminine, respectively. Rhythm, the perpetual alternation between identification and attachment between self and other, again at all levels, generates the rhythm of the universe. Cause and effect. What we observe as cause and effect is simply the operation and outcome of these processes. So in any event, even these few brief points of the ideas in the Kabbalion, they also help us see the idea of an arbitrary string of axioms, but expressions of certain basic principles that, once understood, illuminate them all. And that's what I'm going to leave us with, that is, illuminate all of life that you experience into the glory of the wholeness of the Creator that we all are. That's where you release the victimization, you release the cords of attachment, you release the impulse to have addictive tendencies by illuminating it all. Illuminating your shadows, illuminating the collective shadow, standing in your light, helping the collective stand in their light. And remember the mission. And the last reminder is, are you entangling yourself mentally and emotionally with your experiences in the world, causing an identification, a judgment, stress, and anxiety upon your own being? Or are we allowing, like it says, to allow the mental, physical, and spiritual experiences to pass by on a TV screen inside of our mind, knowing that this too shall pass? Really great content to ponder on as we continue on our travels, this human journey. And I thank you all for tuning in as we explored the breaking down of the roots of addiction today. And whew, boy, I trust that we definitely transmitted and anchored very, very vital and helpful codes today. And thank you, Phoenix, for joining and having the courage to share your most recent experiences when it comes to overcoming addictive behaviors as well. It's not easy, especially on the spiritual journey when it comes to these plant medicines. And yeah, I honor you for sharing your journey. And I'm also cheering you on and, giving you celebration as well for continuing to step forward.
Well, thank you for bringing this beautiful, important wisdom out to the collective. There's no doubt we are here to be of service to the upliftment and empowerment of humanity. There's no ulterior motives here. It's super clear. We're here to assist our star brothers and sisters in the ascent of the family. And we're all here to lock arms with each other and open our hearts with each other and to be transparent about all the things we're going through and to really build the sacred family and to do the work that needs to be done within the self so that we can come together and build something new with each other. And it's not just words, it's real. And that's the movement. Sometimes we got to go through all of our own, our individual patterns in our shadows to start to be able to come together and formulate sacred families and support this initiative and unhijacking the many powerful light warriors that are out there that sometimes get a little caught in the waves. And we're just here as lighthouses, all of us as pillars of light, not to cast any judgment, but to invite all to rise. So yeah, beautiful topic, beautiful, important messages. And I guess I can share, I work with the gene keys, and there is a particular key that everyone is coded with that's like your wound to heal for humanity. And so it's, but to me, overall, all of these wounds are all of ours. There's the wound of repression, like based on your calculation, you have a particular one. You might have more than one, but they're the wounds of repression, the wound of denial, the wound of rejection, the wound of shame, the wound of guilt, the wound of separation. And so within each one of those wounds, there's a healing, but specifically because we were talking about the embedding of the sacral chakra, connected to that is the wound of denial. And it's just a short paragraph here about the healing of the wound of denial. And it's part of the initiation, I would call the baptism as well, like our own actual baptism, which may or may not include water, but it's that inner water that's being purified. Wow, Eduardo's got some fire over here. From one of our evergreen trees. Flaming. We got the fires of purification up in here. Ooh. Yeah, here. So I'm going to read this while you guys watch this flame. It's healing of the wound of denial. This is the opening of the second seal, omniscient. The second seal is opened by the 17th city of omniscience, and its target is the wound of denial. Denial is the external expression of fear as anger and aggression. If your core wound is denial, then you're unable to see and take responsibility for your own negative behaviors. The more someone tries to show you your denial, the more powerful it becomes. Throughout humanity, this wound expresses itself through fundamentalism, violence, and sexuality. The only force that can break denial is omniscience, which is what occurs when, even if only for a split second, your vision is opened and your higher bodies literally look down into your mental and your astral bodies. So like you actually are able to, you move through the wound of denial, you open the gates of your higher bodies. You could say your higher self, so that you can look down on your mental and your astral body. This is the notion of being seen through, which comes as a deep, deep shock to the recipient, who usually experiences a complete and permanent rebirth after the event. Once you can see your own denial, it's no longer denial. It's through the opening of the second seal that certain people experience sudden conversions or higher callings. And at the collective level, this seal will bring about great healing to human sexuality and will even extinguish violence. So that's the healing of the wound of denial. May we all have eyes to see. May we remember, actually, like, I've never seen it like the higher self is separate from the lower self. I know sometimes we're like, oh, I have some guides, or my higher self told me that. Like, we're here to bring that down. We're here to unify those things. The higher self is you. The higher self is yourself. The higher self is right here, right now in your body. It can see. Yeah, that's fine. But the air will clean it. So the higher self becomes the observer and the witness watching the movie. We don't get too caught up in things. We are the all-seeing eye. We see the bigger picture. We let the wave come and we let the wave go. We don't hold on to anything so tightly. And that really allows us to be able to observe and witness, become that compassionate witness without being too bogged down or pulled down into a heaviness that we can't get out of. This is how we start to levitate our perception of reality as well. So much love and encouragement to all of you. Thanks for doing the work. Thanks for being honest with yourself. Thanks for letting me be honest with myself in front of you so that I can say, I remind and encourage you to be honest with yourself, you know, and that, yeah, we come out of any false ideas of perceptions of perfection and trying to maintain a level of appearing as something when there could be some little hiccups, you know, within the self. And like when you bring that out into open, that is the perfection. When you're not hiding anything, that's real freedom. There is nothing to hide. It's all clear here, nothing to fear, nothing to hide, crystal clear. And I want to remind you guys, you know, when we talk about parasites, entities, implants, demons, whatever you want to call it, I always say the hungry ghost needs a host. And it's going to host on wherever your shadows are. And a shadow, the way I define a shadow is that a shadow is anything you don't want anybody to know about you. And it's that easy. That's your shadow. It's super simple. You could be like, oh, my shadow is this, my shadow is that. No, your shadow is anything that you don't want someone to know about you. Those are your shadows. Those are the things that are hiding, that are keeping a secret. And those are the holes and the leaks where things start to come in and play with your secretiveness or your hiding of something or covering up of something, where it allows it to like formulate and get bigger and bigger. I've seen a lot of people really redeem themselves from addictions and patterns and behaviors when they're like, damn, I just got to say this one out loud. I've got to acknowledge it within myself and say it out loud to another person so that I realize that I'm not going to keep this a secret anymore. And there's a level of freedom and liberation that comes from that. So just remember that when everyone's talking about shadow work and like, oh, my shadow is this or that. I like the Gene Keys because it has like the spectrum of consciousness. And there are many different ways to describe our shadow patterns, which can help us see them more easy and not identify with them too much, like to realize we were kind of born with them and then we can recode ourselves. But really, to simplify shadow patterns, it's like your shadows are the things you don't want anybody to know about you, the things you're hiding, and that's it. And so once you really start to open up to that, you can start to see more clearly, and then these things don't have as much power over you. And this is how you start to open up those true gates of freedom and liberation. So much love, everyone. Thanks for doing the work.
Gosh, wow. You know, I come into these episodes and I'm kind of intimidated sometimes. I'm like, man, this is like such a deep topic. I'm not sure if I'm gonna know what to say. And then I surrender and I come into these spaces and then boom, 2 hours later, we have the most tangible, relatable, expanding, and deepening conversation. And that is why I continue to show up and be of service. Because, man, these spaces are more than just podcasts. These spaces are more than just digital technology. It's transmissions of life. And man, to really hear your story today about what you're transitioning out of and through, it's so inspirational. And even for myself, I'm coming into a challenging time right now where I have to really start thinking about what I'm consuming. And what I mean by consuming is just overall, you know, what am I consuming that is causing me to be in this place where I'm having such a hard time of being financially stable, why I'm not attracting the kind of finances that can help sustain me right now. And it always comes back to ourselves. You know, what is it that we're doing with our energy that is either creating blockages or we're overactivated and we're leaking our energy in certain areas. And yeah, I'm just grateful. And as someone that came into his self-awareness and self-awakening journey through healing my own addictions to substances and selling, this has just been such a place at home for me on this topic. So again, thank you for hopping on, Phoenix, and being our wonderful sacred guest, sharing your transmissions. And thank you to all of you out there that are sharing this life with us. May we continue to rise in our consciousness and continue to own and do the things necessary with love to be able to shed and release any of the shadow body and find ways to have fun today. This stuff can get deep, this stuff can be emotional, this stuff can be heavy. But with all that, remember that you have that free will of the mind on where you focus and how you use your energy. So observe and then dance. Dance it off, alchemize it, celebrate yourself. Celebrate for becoming more aware today in this moment of who you are and the things that you can work on to become a better version. And with that, I give you guys my love, wholeness, and balanced love. And we have a closing meditation for you guys as well. So on the closeout, feel free to get comfortable and you can rest and relax. There's going to be a 5-minute supportive meditation for you guys as we close out. So enjoy and see you guys next time.
Hello, and welcome to this meditation designed to help those struggling with addiction. Addiction is a powerful force and can be incredibly difficult to overcome. This meditation is intended to support you on your journey towards recovery. Take a moment to find a comfortable and quiet place to sit or lie down. Close your eyes and take a deep breath in through your nose and slowly exhale out through your mouth. Allow yourself to sink into the stillness and silence. Let go of any tensions or worries you have in this moment, and know that you are exactly where you are meant to be. Begin to focus your attention on your breath. Allow your inhale and exhale to become deeper and effortless. Imagine your breath flowing through your body, bringing in calming energy and releasing any tension or negative thoughts stored within you. As you breathe, begin to notice any thoughts or urges related to your addiction that may arise. Rather than letting them consume you, simply observe them and then gently let them go with your exhale. Imagine that with each exhale, you are releasing the hold your addiction has over you. As you continue to breathe, begin to visualize a bright light shining within you. This light represents your inner strength and resilience. With each inhale, imagine this light growing brighter and more powerful. As you exhale, allow this light to expand throughout your body, filling every inch of your being with its warmth and strength. Know that this light is always within you, and that you can call on it at any time to support you on your journey towards recovery. Take a few more deep breaths, feeling the grounding support of the earth beneath you. When you feel ready, gently bring your attention back to the present moment. Take a moment to acknowledge your inner strength and the progress you've made so far on your journey towards recovery. Know that you're not alone in your struggle, and that there's always support available to you. When you're ready, slowly open your eyes and return to your day, carrying with you the strength and resilience you've cultivated within yourself. Namaste.